Red, thank you so much for having us over and agreeing to talk to me today.
Thank
For
you.
those of you who are new to these videos, we're really going to focus today on music professionalism and music business and what being a professional guitar player actually looks like in real life as opposed to the movies. Um, One of the places that I usually like to start with these interviews is what the day-to-day of being a professional guitar player looked like for you. It looks different for everybody, and with someone who has been so versatile through your career or through their career as you have, I think that's a good place to start. So, when you were living in Austin and you were gigging 6, 7 nights a week, what did a normal day look like for you when you got up in the morning?
Pretty bleak because every day, self-employed musician, you don't have any work.
Right, right,
So you work day to day and you find gigs and get gigs and hustle gigs and all of that. So it's like, but that's just a normal part of it is to
sure,
do that because you're not going to the mill and working there and doing your 8 hours, 10 hours and getting off, go home. You're not doing that. So it's kind of a feast or famine sort of lifestyle in a way.
sure.
Uh, the harder you work, of course, the luckier you seem to be to all the guys that aren't working. And other than that, I mean, it's to me, that's all I've ever done. So it's a real normal way of life for me
Right,
because it's being a self-employed musician bum is just that's what it is. And I'm always looking for work and never turning anything down because of the fear of all of it drying up, the well running dry, and nobody calling. If somebody calls you a couple of 3 times and says, "Hey, can you do this gig?" and you go, "Nah, I don't wanna," or "It doesn't pay enough," or some excuse, they're going to call you maybe 3 times. After that, you'll never hear from them again.
right, right.
So once a guy gets that and figures that out at some point in his musical career, then you go, okay, I need to be a little bit more diplomat about it and either be sneaky with your questions or your answers, that kind of a thing, and try and book your jobs. Like anything, you plan it all in order, and it's not like the booking agent throwing the dart at the map and saying, well, you're in Des Moines tonight and Florida the next night. Who wants to do that?
Sure.
But in a nightclub situation in a one town or a city or a couple little surrounding towns, it's pretty easy to do. And it's once you get into it and figure out kind of the routine. So in that way, I don't think it's not scary or anything like that. It is what it is. Maybe to some people it would be because you're not having a steady income coming from the bank or whatever kind of job that you would have in a day gig.
Right, right, right.
So, and each job a lot of times pays a different money. Like a bunch of bars pay 40, $50 a gig for maybe a 3 hour gig, and in the old days it was a 5 hour gig and the same money.
Right, right.
So money hadn't gone up, but the hours have gone down a bit. And so a lot of bands play for less hours and that these days. So I don't know if that's a bonus or not because the money's not any better and the cost of living goes up. So you have to work it all out accordingly. But
Right.
that's just kind of how it goes. And I think it's that same situation for anybody that's either self-employed or in some form of the arts.
Right.
If you're an actor or a painter, any kind of artist, it's that same situation. They're all scrambling for work all the time. And a lot of it is word of mouth and recommendation from other people. And, word of mouth or somebody comes to a gig and sees you. If you stay home, they'll never hear how great you can be.
Sure. Sure.
So if you're out playing, some guys look at it like, oh, I'll take any garbage gig that doesn't matter just to be out there. And maybe there's a guy that comes to the gig and goes, hey, I've got $200 for my job. You want it? That's a possibility. Then that happens, So some guys hope for that, and that's one of their tools that they use to reason doing what they're doing.
Okay. Well, I guess with that, with the daily grind, you were gigging 5, 6, 7 nights a week most of your life, right?
Yeah.
What did you have on top of that a practice regiment, or were you keeping your chops through the gigs?
Probably mostly through the gigs, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like as a young guy, of course, a kid, I practiced 10 hours a day
Sure.
and skip school to practice and sneak to the music store, pull a guitar down, sit in the corner and
Mm-hmm.
woodshed on stuff. And the little cafe across the street had a jukebox and they had some instrumentals when I was a kid playing on 45. So I would listen to those, run across the street, try and figure that stuff out. And I did that, a lot of practice that way. And
Sure.
then once I got where I was playing full time, I still would practice a lot all through my 20s
Mm-hmm.
and probably 30s too. And then after I moved to the States from Canada, I came down in about 86, I think it was. And I played, from then on, I played 7 nights a week as much as I could because I just wanted to learn more guitar and get better at it. And I
Sure.
just became a nut about the guitar. And so the only way to do that is more and more of it and
Mm-hmm.
obsession and all those things that go with that. And so once I got to the point where I was playing 7 nights a week, I could let up on my practice a bit and I would just focus on things I had to learn. Or if I played in a showcase situation where I'm backing up a new singer with a new album and have to learn all their stuff for this show and those kind of things, you do that and write charts and whatever, those kind of things, but not just sit down and I'm going to figure out a Chet Atkins lick today, you know, that kind of.
Sure.
I cut back on that as time went on,
Right.
because I'm playing all the time, and and when I lived in Los Angeles, same thing there. I would play 7 nights a week and 2 shifts, 3 shifts sometimes on Saturday and Sunday, where you would play like a pool party in the afternoon, and then a happy hour gig, supper time kind of thing, and then a night gig that was 10 to 2 or quarter to 3 sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
So I'd do 3 gigs on Friday, Saturday, Sunday a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of the week was just regular 7-night gigs.
Right.
That were 10 to 2, 9 to 2 kind of gigs back in those days. And then I moved to Nashville, and same thing there with all the clubs
Right.
going on. They have all the clubs are open 7 days a week, and there's 4 or 5 shifts a day starting at 10 a.m. So when I got there, I would do a duo with somebody, doing like a 10 to 1, and then I guess, so what would it be, 1 to 5 or 2 to 6 or something like that. Do that with a band, and then do a 6 to 10 with a band. Then I go up to Printer's Alley and play a club there that was 10:15 till 2:45 every night. I did that 6 nights a week there, so I had a Sunday night off late.
Mm-hmm.
But I got playing guitar in Nashville.
Right.
If I'm off, I'm at a jam session somewhere jamming because I want to learn off whoever and
Right.
I could steal stuff from, and that's just what I did. And
Right.
it's been a wonderful thing. But that was my deal, that I think I played so much. I played a minimum of 5-6 hours a day in Nashville. Same when I moved to Austin, same deal there.
Right.
A lot of the clubs have 2-3 bands a day in a club. So, being a guitar whore, you hire on with whoever will hire you and will have you. And like I say, the pay ain't that great. So as many as you can get in a day, if you're lucky, you can make 100 to 200 a day just playing nightclubs and afternoon shifts and whatever, that kind of, and is what it is. So, I mean, you can live off it. A lot of people do and have, and still do, and live on less. So it's, to me, that was what I wanted to do, mainly because I wanted to learn more guitar and be a better player and all of that stuff. And then finding out once I'm in the game, it's like, oh, this is what's involved. Okay, I'll do it. So I just kind of caved into that, and I wasn't, why fight anything? I mean, if you're at the bottom of the barrel, you can stay there and just keep going, or you can do all that's involved with that and try and escape or come up the ladder a little bit. And that just takes, same old thing, takes time and credibility, I guess, somewhat.
Sure. So I want to follow up on a couple of the things that you said right there and sort of relate it to, I guess, oriented towards the music business a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned having the occasional night off and still going to jams. and climbing your way up the ladder. My understanding is that's pretty much how you got the gig with Merle Haggard, was you were jamming with members of his band already, correct?
Yeah.
And so how important, in your opinion, is networking as it relates to sort of, I guess, working your way up the ladder, getting the better gigs, getting in with the right band and the right guys?
Well, I mean, I think networking is really important on every level in any business. But what's networking? You know, does that mean that you're doing coke with somebody on the golf course? In some games, that's okay, and that's cool, and that's what's needed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, other ways, it's like going to a jam session,
right.
Out of sight, out of mind. Bottom line, you know,
Mm-hmm.
if you're at a jam session tonight, and then somebody that was there that plays was in the crowd, and they go, "Oh man, we need a guitar player tonight. Do you know anybody? How about the guy last night we saw? Man, he was great." That's how, to me, that's that bare bones, simplest kind of networking thing that's possible. And
Right.
hopefully you were smart enough to take a bunch of cards and do the Nashville handshake where your card sticks to his hand when you leave.
Right.
You know,
Right.
that kind of thing. And so, yeah, I think networking is a huge part of it. But like I say, there's many, many levels of it. And I think that some of that depends on the character of the person.
Right.
In that a guy that's just ruthless
Mm-hmm.
is the guy that will do anything and whatever it takes to get noticed or get
Right.
his name in the paper or be in a big band, or what he's going to do, whatever he can do to get there. And other guys are like, not cocky, but they're like, well, I play a certain way, and if it's good enough to fit in that thing, then I'd like to do it, but I'm sure not going to kiss anybody's ass to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all kind of levels of that, you know.
Yeah.
So, but to answer your question, yeah, networking is a huge part of it, and a big plus, but can be a negative too.
Sure. So to kind of catch up to that a little bit, it's around 1997. You're playing in the Don Kelly band at that point, and your phone rings, and it's Merle. And Merle Haggard says something to the effect of, "Do you want to join the band?" Going again down the road of the business side of these things, what happens from there? So you get the phone call. I know that you wavered a little bit, right? You thought for half a second, maybe I don't want to take this gig.
No, it wasn't that.
It
No,
wasn't that.
I mean, I dreamt of that gig forever,
Right,
thinking
sure.
that, you know, it's never going to happen. Roy
Right.
Nichols will live forever,
Right.
you know. So I joke about it, you know, that I thought for about a half a second.
Right.
But, you know, when he called, I didn't even think it was him. I thought it was my buddy Jim Murphy calling me.
Right.
So I just said, "Murph, you fucker, you know, quit it." He said, "No, I'm Merle Haggard. I'm a singer." I was like, "Who says that?"
Right.
I'm
right.
a singer.
Who follows up with that?
Right.
Right.
So it couldn't have been him, and probably nobody else. So maybe it is him. So at that point, it was like, okay, kind of what do you want, you know? And he asked me if I would be interested in playing in the band. And, you know, of course it was like, so I said, yeah, and took the gig. And as soon as I hung up, I called my mother and said, "Guess what? I can quit playing now." And she said, "What, did Merle Haggard call you?" I said, "Yeah, he did."
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was like a dream come true for a Telecaster nut to get a gig like that. But as far as him and his deal and all of that, he's an old guy, old school. So he called me on the phone and got my name from a bunch of guys in his band, a recommendation, because when they were in town, they would be doing TV shows, and the nighttime TV shows that we would see in the old days in Nashville, they filmed them in the afternoon. And they started, you know, like at 3:00, you loaded in, and they filmed from, you know, 4 or 5 to maybe 7:30 at the latest for a show. And then everybody took off, and Merle went somewhere, did something, or had interviews, or went to the radio station and PR'd his work. And the band, they just scattered like rats and went all over town and went jamming. So I played at this one club in the Printer's Alley called Skull's Rainbow Room. And a bunch of those guys used to come in a fair bit. Of course, they'd get up and jam, and Clint Strong, a bunch of those guys would come in. Joe Manuel took Clint's place. And so when Joe quit, Joe was playing guitar before me. he went on with Leanne Womack, who was a wonderful singer, and
Yeah.
he got a band leader gig, which I guess paid more and
Sure.
all of that. And so he took that gig, but recommended me, and a bunch of the band did. So, turned out 5 out of 8 of them had recommended me for the gig. So that was a pretty much a shoe-in there.
Sure.
So I only had to get even with 3 of them, but...
So you get the phone call, you call your mom. Is there a follow-up from Merle Haggard's management? How does the hiring process actually work with that? Is there a contract? Is there an employment contract?
No, I said, hey, would you, or I said you, thinking like he's just like us. I said, would you or somebody in your crew send me some tapes of how you're doing your material? I know all your songs. I've played them all my life, and I love them, and blah, blah. But could you send me stuff of how you guys are playing it today? And I'll just bone up on the arrangements, because I'm sure through the years, all the songs have changed, and, solos are in different spots, and harmony parts for different tunes that they're doing. And, guitar and the steel and the fiddle would play maybe 3 different harmony parts. And so if they're doing that this year, then I would like to learn those ahead of time. And he's like, nah, just come play with us. Okay. That was it. I'll send you a plane ticket, and we'll start in the first town of the tour and see how it goes.
Wow. Okay.
So 3 weeks later, I'm asking Norm, the steel player, who's the band leader, Norm Hamlet. I said, so what's the deal here? What's going on? Nobody's said anything about, if I got the gig, or if it's a done deal, or, because I was worried about it, thinking, what if they hate my shirt or something, or my plan, yeah, you never know.
Right.
So I said, what's the deal? He said, I think you're pretty much in there. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, you see how much he's laughing when you play? I said, yeah. He said, that's usually a pretty good sign. If he's laughing when you play, and he keeps giving you solos over and over and over again because he wants to see you play, I'd say that's a pretty good sign that you got the job.
Okay.
And I was like, oh. And then he said, of course, if you didn't do that, you probably wouldn't be here at 3 weeks.
Wow.
You would have done 2 gigs, and they'd have said, thanks, it's not working out. He would have himself, Merle would have.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was like a really old school.
He was very hands-on.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, totally. Big time. Yeah. So it wasn't any, talk to my answering machine, and it'll talk to yours, and we'll set something up with our lawyers, and we'll drop the paperwork, and none of that.
Wow.
Nothing.
Wow.
It was just like an old bar band situation. Hey, you want to play? Okay. Well, come on.
So there wasn't a situation where you were negotiating salary or that type of thing?
No, I mean, to me, at that point, it was like, I didn't care what it paid. It was Merle Haggard.
Sure. Okay.
So I wouldn't have the balls to ask for, so let's figure this out, Merle. What's it pay? Nah.
Right.
I just was like, whatever. So it paid what it paid, and everybody got the same pay in the band on a day rate for every job,
Okay. So it was a day rate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where a lot of Nashville bands have a salary.
Exactly.
They pay you a quarter of what you should get and work you to death.
Yes.
But the ones with the day rate, they're honest, they pay you good money for each day that you're there. Whether they work, if you're out on the road, sometimes for them it's in their advantage to work as much as they can to keep everybody working.
They're paying you either way.
Who wants to make their money for 3 nights and be traveling for 4 days extra?
Right.
You're going to blow what you made just hanging around waiting,
Sure. Okay, awesome. So what did a sick day look like then on the road? Did those even exist? How sick did you have to be when you were touring to have the night off and have to hire a sub?
I don't remember ever having that. I don't. I mean, I remember throwing up and having the squirts and all of that, but you just pinch it all in, and when you get a break, you let her go, and you get back, go to work. I mean, that's just how I've always done it. I could never, ever
say, hey, boss, I'm taking
I've never been that guy. I just never could do that. hang on till if I was dying, I would still be there doing it. And
Right. Well, believe it or not, people wanted to know that. So they
well,
wanted to know what sick days look like on the road. So.
one New Year's Eve, I had a really bad cold, and we were recording in Nashville, and with Merle and Alison Krauss was singing. They were doing a duet thing, and everybody was recording at this place called Bradley's Barn, a famous old place, and it was a New Year's Eve, and I had this rotten cold, stuffed up head, and was coughing like crazy. So I brought me like 4 packs of Halls to the recording, and just the way it was set up in the studio, I was set up and my amp was in another room, so I had a long cord to the amp, but I had a Telecaster in a chair. And here's Alison Krauss singing on a mic, and her upright bass player with a mic in his bass, all in the same little area. And we're recording this song, and I feel a cough coming on. And I'm thinking, man, I don't want to stink up the session and have them have to start over, because I went, and her mic and the bass guitar mic picked it up. So I hold my breath, and I'm just trying to hold. You know, when you got a tickly cough, you hold your breath and you hold your breath. Well, I passed out and I fell out of the chair. Of course, it sounded like I threw a Telecaster down some stairs plugged in. You know, gang, gang, ba-dong, dang, dang. So they had to stop and redo it. And of course, when I came to, I passed out and I fell out of the chair. I came to, I'm looking up, and here she's looking, "Are you all right?" And I was embarrassed. That was probably my worst sick moment.
Wow.
I was so embarrassed that I caused that session to stop because of my dumb ass. I could have, you know, probably sent a sub in, but I'm not that kind of guy. And secondly, I wanted to record on New Year's Eve with Merle Haggard and Alison Krauss come hell or high water. You know, if I died, that's okay. At least I got a little bit of it in, you know. So that was my only kind of sick thing that really didn't pan out very good, you know, but lots of sick over the years, flus and colds and things like that. And like I say, but you always just plow through and get her done, you know.
Okay. So during that time, you were, I know certain years playing upwards of 100 shows a year with Merle Haggard's band. But you still, correct me if I'm wrong, you were still doing your own stuff at the same time. But from the sounds of it, you were paid a day rate with Merle. There wasn't any sort of retainer for the downtime, so you were off looking for work, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, when we were done a little, we'd go out for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then we'd be home for 3 or 4 weeks. So in that time, I'd have nothing. So got to work, got bills to pay, blah blah. So you know, same kind of thing. I would still be hustling all my bar gigs. Thinking, okay, my dates are from, you know, March 15th till April 15th, and we're gone a month, say. So then in March, I'm booking gigs and calling on the phone and lining stuff up and booking things from April 15th until, you know, the beginning of June. So I would fill that slot up with local, same old thing like I was doing before, knowing that the 1st of June we were going out on the next little run. So I would just plan it kind of that way.
And so long as you had gigs booked with the Merle Haggard band, you knew you were still part of the band? Since there was no contract, it was so long as there are gigs, you're part of the band, right?
Oh, totally, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if I only know of maybe 1 or 2 guys where they didn't call them back for the next tour.
That's what I was getting at.
I mean, that happens.
Ever happen?
You know, that happens. Sometimes we all got fired in the middle of a tour because he wanted to go home.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So technically we all got fired, but probably a week before the next tour was to start, you'd get a phone call saying, well, we're going out this date and that, because everybody kind of knew that that's how it worked.
That's how it worked.
So it was an unsaid thing with him, with that deal. You know, but if it was a contracted thing, I'm sure that would not have happened.
Sure. So we fast forward a little bit, and you hook up, you get to meet, or rather Brad Paisley gets to meet you, I guess is the better way to put it. And he's described you in interviews as a hero and a mentor.
Well, he's young.
And I guess where I'm going with this is you played on Cluster Pluck with Brad and a bunch of other guys. How does a situation like that work? Now we're talking, you described him as young. Now we're talking about a younger or a different generation of country music. Again, we're talking about a major label situation. And now we're talking about a major label situation that has award night implications and is part of an album. And now we're talking about potential royalties, not asking about any sort of numbers or anything like that. But how does that differ from the Merle Haggard Band?
To me, not much at all.
Really?
For me and what I had to do with it and all of that. I mean, I've known Brad a long time. When I played at Roberts with Don Kelly,
Right.
when he was still going to Belmont College, he used to come and watch me play and, come up to my pedal board and write the settings down and talk about pickups and all of that. So I knew who he was, kind of thing. And then after I'd moved to Texas, then he's already doing radio tours solo by himself, getting the radio thing going when he got it started. So he would come to the clubs that I was playing in Austin at that time.
Okay.
And I knew some of his band guys when they started touring. So, of course, they'd come to my gigs when they came through Austin. They'd get done there. They'd come to the late night club gigs and hang out. So we visit and jam and hang and stuff. I ended up playing his wedding and, got to be pretty good buds with him, kind of a situation. So before that, Cluster Pluck, he had another album called Mud on the Tires.
And you did
that we had a song called Spaghetti Western Swing, which we got nominated for, but I think Alison Krauss won that year instead of him. But whatever. So I got to play on it. But it was that kind of thing was when I recorded that, I was in Nashville already doing some other recording that somebody else had paid for me to fly to Nashville to record.
Okay.
And I'd set it up. Hey, Brad, I'm going to be in town anyway. I'll save you some money, and I can come on after this day if you'll pay the $150 to extend my plane ticket to change my ticket.
Okay.
Then I'll be in town and we can do that instrumental. Oh, great. Okay. So I went over there and did it. And that was the end of that. And I think he mailed me a check for something. Yeah. And that was the end of it. So,
oh, wow. Okay.
No royalties. No, it's his stuff, his songs.
No lawyers, nothing like that?
None of that.
Okay.
And he's, I'm sure he's like that with some things, but I kind of think that he's not that way with other guitar nerds that are
I don't
buds.
get that impression for sure.
Yeah, he's just a regular guy,
Right.
So when the Cluster Pluck thing came up, he called me and said, hey, I'm going to do this instrumental. I got a pile of guys on it. Do you want to do something on it? And I said, nah. No.
Right.
So I did. And it was odd for me because I don't know if all of them did it, but I sent my part in. He sent me a track and I went to a studio in Austin, put the track up and then I got a little note in an email that said, at whatever it was 136 from 136 to 137 you can play in there and for 1 second and then later on in the song you get 3 second spot, put all your stuff in there. So I did that and sent it back and then they mixed it and that's how that thing was done. So I don't know if he might have had a couple of days where he had 3 or 4 guys in his studio that came and laid down their parts. But I did mine in Austin. I didn't see anybody or talk to anybody or nobody told me what to play or just where, So it wasn't like, nah, that wasn't good. Can you do another one? None of that stuff. Right. It was just put your thing on and send it. And if you're happy with it, I'm happy. It was that simple of a thing. And that was the end of that. Wow. Then, I don't know, a year or so later, you get a Grammy in the mail.
Hey.
Well, there it is over there.
Right, there it is. Okay, so one of my follow-up questions to that was about, I guess, mentorship in sort of the music community and whether that was something that you experienced either being mentored or as a mentor in Austin. You played that circuit for a lot of years in Austin, and a lot of people point to you as someone who has been a major influence on their music and their playing. And I was wondering if that was something that you felt was important to I guess the music community as a whole.
I mean, I'm like everybody else, like a
Mm-hmm.
young guy that's a goofy gomer that wants to play guitar more than anything in the world. To me, it's like, yeah, that's great. And I'm still that guy. And so to meet those guys, it's like, yeah, if I can help them out, I'll gladly do it,
Mm-hmm.
So I had a bunch of students over the years, and some have gone on to do wonderful things and are great players, and some got smart and quit, and all of that. And,
Right.
so yeah, there's a lot of guys come by and always asking questions and wanting to know about, well, what order do you got your pedals in? Does that make a difference? And what kind of pickups and blah blah. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love that stuff. So I'll talk my ass
Sure.
off about that all day long,
Right.
as they will, and they want to learn like I wanted to learn as a young guy.
Right.
It's the same thing, and a few times as a kid in Canada, there was a couple of guys up there that I run into that were sort of famous to me up there.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not heard of them here. They're long dead, but I would ask them something, and they'd kind of be like one guy he was great on a Stratocaster with a wang bar on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I said, how do you keep that thing in tune?
Mm-hmm.
It's unbelievable. Back then, that was before trem setters and all that.
Locking tuners,
nothing.
and all of that,
It was
right.
a 3 or 5 springs in the back of a Strat, and good
Sure.
luck,
Right.
And he stayed in tune. He would just yanking on a dive bombing and unbelievable stuff. And I asked him I waited in line. There was like 30 people wanting his autograph and shaking his hand. So I waited in
Sure.
line like all good kids. And he said, "Hey, how you doing?" I said, "I'm good. Nice to hear you play. I love your playing." And he says, what do you want? I said, well, I got a question for you if you don't mind. He says, what is it? I said, how do you keep that thing in tune? And it's like he went off. He said, you know what graphite is? And I said, yeah, it's lead in a pencil. He said, yeah, you take a pencil and you rub it on the nut before you put your strings on, and that's it. That's all I use. And it was like real matter of fact and cold. Mm-hmm. And I was like embarrassed that I wasted his time.
Right.
And I pissed him off, I guess, by asking him a secret, maybe,
Wow.
Wow. And I was just like, when I went away, I was hurt, mm-hmm. by it as a kid, mm-hmm. And I thought, man, I'll never be that kind of a prick,
Yeah.
So to me, it's like, that was keep that there.
Yeah.
So if a young guy comes up and asks what's a stupid question to me, mm-hmm. it's a brand new world to that guy. He's like a goose. He's a young guy.
Sure. He
doesn't know what's coming tomorrow, and he hasn't seen what's happened 50,000 times in a row. So it's new.
Right.
So I just figured, why not treat a guy like that, not like I got from that guy? And that happened a few times, and I just thought, man, that's kind of,
right.
I guess if you're that big, you got a right to do it. But now, being an old fart, I'd say, nah, I'd punch him in the nose for doing that to a kid. It's
right.
just not right, to treat somebody like it. Don't cost a nickel to be nice. And besides, everybody paid to get in there to watch that guy play. Why is he so snarky?
Yeah.
He should be thankful he made whatever money he made that day, So sure. I'm all for young guys playing, and got a million questions and all of that. And I get my band, they'd always laugh and say, we take a break. He never takes one. Because I'm at the edge of the stage or bringing guys up to the stage and going, well, if you take this and turn that and you take a jump record from that one and, sure. talking shit all the time. But I love it too. That's not wasting my time, I don't think. And I don't think I'm helping somebody as far as, this is going to give this guy a jump start. Not at all. Mm-hmm. It's something that a guy wants to know that he doesn't know. So why not pass it on if you know that information? I mean, it's sure. not, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's a dad thing. I don't know if that's what it is, or, right. Passing that information on. Like, okay, here's the carburetor on a lawnmower. If you mm-hmm. turn this screw, if you don't know that, that's brand new magic information to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I think of music and the guitars and amps and bands and all that stuff. I think of that the same way, and more than happy to pass that stuff on to people, and I always have been that way.
Wonderful.
And yeah. I think I don't want any praise for it. I just think that's how it ought to be. Just that simple.
I agree.
you know.
So kind of staying in that vein a little bit with, I guess, the more professionalism side is what we're talking about now. I've heard you in other interviews and read your response in certain interviews talk about really learning from Don Kelly as a band leader. You've described him as you've described him as the best band leader in Nashville. And
that I'd ever worked
that,
for,
that
yeah,
you that
totally.
you'd ever worked for, and that you learned quite a bit about, I guess, how to run a band from him, and and how to, I guess, respectfully and professionally take a solo, and how to change up the solos to make sure you're not playing the same thing all night. Can you just talk a little bit more about what you learned from Don Kelly as a band leader and some of the things that you picked up from that?
Yeah, I mean, Don's a certain kind of guy. He's a wonderful person. He's painfully honest.
Mm-hmm.
So, he would be really, really blunt with everybody. And a lot of people didn't like that because he was just so honest and blunt about what he said things to people. But he cut to the chase, So if he didn't like something, you goddamn knew it, But if he liked it, he's kind of like your dad. He may not say that, man, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing really good. He wasn't that kind of a dad. He couldn't say that.
Right.
But he'd tell everybody else in town how good it was,
Right.
That, and they'd swear all the time. That motherfucker, he could play goddamn rah, 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 rave about you. And then when he come to pay you at the end of the night, if there were some other guitar players standing around, he'd come to me and he'd hand me my pay. And he'd say, here, loud in front of everybody, here, go buy you a tone, motherfucker, and turn around and walk away. It's like he's that kind of guy.
Right.
Like kind of like a gruff kind of dad guy.
Sure.
But that said, in a band situation, I think sometimes that gruffness helped for making people to listen and pay attention to what he wanted. And if he said something in a band we're working on something, you say, well, this isn't working here, and he would just flat out say, this part sucks. You're doing that and you're doing that, and it's not right, and so change this, come up with something different, but make it better. And he was really like that. So we go over it again, and whatever needed fixing got fixed, and that was the end of that. But yeah, solo wise was always a blast, and he was kind of like, I did work with him first, so to me, Merle was like him to me, in that if he liked what you did, he'd go again. But in Don's thing, like Merle's was, he was enjoying it and loving it, and he thought the people should enjoy it too. But in Don Kelly's deal, it was more of a, I'm testing you. Whatever you played this last solo, he didn't say that, but by doing it, if you repeated yourself, that was the last solo you got in that song.
Okay.
So it didn't take long to figure, if you got any kind of wit about you, you can figure that out, that if you go again, play something different, or then he'd holler blues, rock, jazz. So you do a solo that was bluesy. And then if you liked it and you did a good job on it, he'd holler at you, rock, rip it up or whatever. So then bendy, wank, wank, go on with that. And if you like that solo, go again. He'd say something else like jazz or swing or something, play something different. And it was like to coax you and egg you on to play a different style for each solo. And I was like, what a cool concept, especially for a guitar nerd.
Right.
And it made you think, and it made you want to please him, because he's 200% on your side by letting you play that much in a bar band. Who does that?
Right.
Usually it's about the bad singer and his shiny acoustic guitar he can't play, most of the time.
Sure.
So, but yeah, he's a guitar player and a guitar nerd too. So he just loved to hear that stuff, and so he was so cool that way, I think, with helping players and young guys out that came in his band. It was a wonderful learning process, that part of it. And, a lot of little things that you kind of don't notice maybe at the time or take for granted and don't think about it till later. Then when you're in that spot with your own band, it's like, it's kind of, what would Don Kelly do? Something similar might happen, a little kink in the band or whatever. And you think, well, oh, that kind of happened with so and so back in Don's band. So what did he do? And I would think of those things, and it was kind of problem solving a little bit, but just being aware of that kind of stuff. And I never got that from a lot of band leaders. You
Okay.
know, a lot of them were more, they're so focused on getting to the top and being a big shot, and that the band is just a coincidental thing that they got to have a band because all the guys on the videos have bands behind them, and that's what they got to have. They have no input into what the band does or the part of the sound, developing a sound for that guy, like in old music, Merle Haggard, Buck Owens, and all those kind of bands. You could tell by the guitar sound who was going to be singing on the radio, by the intro,
Sure.
the steel guitar, the kind of player,
Sure.
you know, so they tailored their sound and to that singer and his songs and his music. So that became a style, like the Bakersfield style, Nashville style, Chicago blues. It's a certain style, Mississippi blues. It's all different styles. And I think part of that not only is the singer and the songs and the singing style, but the band playing and the musicians behind them. James Brown's band. There's no other band sounds like that.
Nope.
Ray Charles' band. Nobody sounds like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably they're meant to do that. And there was a reason they did that. It's because it made that guy sound the best they could come up with, that combination of people to make them sound good. And I think Don Kelly had that kind of a mojo thing in his deal as well. And to me, it sure rubbed off.
Okay.
I mean, when I got my band in Austin, I had the same drummer for 20 years. Mm-hmm. I had the same bass player for probably 15, and the same piano player for 12.
Wow.
So same guys. So we had a certain sound, like it or not. If we stunk, whatever, that's our sound, and we sounded a certain way. And those guys, every time we'd work on something or do new tunes, same thing. They would put their style into it, but us playing together that long, their style became our style because it was those same four guys all the time.
Right.
You know.
So actually, you brought us right to where I wanted to be with the next question, which is now we've gotten to you running a band, you are playing with these guys constantly. What are some of your pet peeves with being a gigging musician? You show up to a new venue and you see something that immediately you don't want to see, or you hear something that you don't want to hear, someone sitting in with you that that bothers you. Do you have pet peeves like that, or?
Yeah, but it's, it's the kind of thing. If you're the guitar player, if I'm a guitar player in your band, that's your band. Mm-hmm. If you want to get guys up to play and sit in with us that are great, great. If you want to get guys that get up and play that stink, okay, that's fine. It's your gig. It's your deal. That kind of thing. So I would never say anything or
sure
have any gripe with that or anything. Right. But in my own situation, lots of people want to sit in and play. So it's the same old thing. How do you gauge that or screen that and say, well, I don't know this guy, so what if he gets up and just stinks it up and plays in the wrong key for the whole thing and just is horrible and too loud and doesn't even tune and all. Who wants to go through that or put your crowd through that? Or the club owner that maybe won't hire you back because it sounded so bad so many times when you did that.
That's going to reflect on you, not them, not the person sitting in.
Totally. So that's where you got to kind of be diplomatic again. And think about that kind of stuff.
That's a great point, yeah.
You got to think about that, and you say, well, if a guy comes up and says, hey, I'd love to sit in with your band. I play with name drop and name drop and name drop, and you should love me because I'm amazing. There's my flag right away. You know what? Here's my email. Send me some links of your stuff, and next time you come in, I'll call you up. Bring your amp with you, And then you look at that stuff, and listen to it and you make up your mind. If it's good, well, yeah, come on, play, If it's horrible and he's told you that he's Jeff Beck, thanks, we're good.
Right.
And
Right.
in that way, I'm not think I'm being mean, but I'm kind of being mean by saying no.
Mm-hmm.
But I look at it like, nah, I'm going to save a whole bunch of grief here
Mm-hmm.
by having this guy get mad at me for not calling him up.
Mm-hmm. Couple last things that I want to follow up on. You mentioned very early on in this discussion about preparing for a new gig, preparing for playing with somebody, learning new material. Uh, Over your career, how would you usually approach that, learning new material? Did you have a certain music methodology? Were you a I'll listen to it and I can play it back kind of guy? What was your approach to learning that type of stuff?
Well, I'm an ear guy, so
Mm-hmm.
I don't know shit from Wild Honey as far as the theory and all the math of music and that kind of stuff. I do know the number system.
Sure.
So to me, there's 8 notes and the rest are for the music police, that kind of thing. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, so with the number system, if I wrote my own charts, it would always be number charts,
Sure.
and which is a handy thing. And I would get a CD or, in the old days, a cassette tape, and listen to the tune and write the chords for the song. And then in sections, I would write, not being a theory music guy, when it came time for the solo, if it was a verbatim da na 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 kind of a lick,
Mm-hmm.
I would write those notes out in the numbers of whatever key it was in.
Mm-hmm.
It was in C. I would put an E note.
Mm-hmm.
Or I could write a 3, which is
Mm-hmm.
the third note of the C scale, and lead on that, and I'd give myself little clues on my chart
Sure.
of what that lick, to remind me how that lick went.
A cheat sheet.
Sheet of sorts, for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I would do that. Like if it was for the band, the number charts would be it, and I would write
Sure.
a box solo,
Mm-hmm.
and then underneath, piano fills the first verse, acoustic guitar gets the second, fiddle gets the chorus, and for fills and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
If I was doing that kind of a chart, but just sit and listen to the song and over several times until I get the tempo and the feel in my head,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever the guitar needed to be as close as I could copy to that, and it may not be exactly the same, but I'd try and get as close as I possibly could.
Sure.
And but it was all by ear for the
Mm-hmm.
most part, as far
Mm-hmm.
as transferring from the tape to my head or to my pen,
Mm-hmm.
was all by ear to do that. So
Okay.
that's kind of what I did for that. And it was,
It
mostly
worked,
country
right?
music and
Yeah.
rockabilly and that kind of stuff. So, it's not rocket science,
Okay. And I guess then you get to whatever new gig or session, whatever it is that you're going to. Did you ever, throughout your career, experience any sort of performance anxiety or anything like that when it came to, you're playing New Year's Eve, Alison Krauss and Merle Haggard. Did you ever freeze up? Did you ever have a moment like that?
I don't know if I froze, because I can't say I froze. I mean, it's a
Right.
gig and you got to do the gig and you
Sure.
do your best, dead level best,
Mm-hmm.
bottom line,
Yeah.
whether someone's there or not. But I mean, I've played gigs where I was nervous as a rat. Albert Lee is sitting out front watching me, and I'm,
Right.
of course, being a guitar nerd that can barely play compared to that guy, I look at it and go,
Sure.
he's just sitting there, and I know he's waiting for me to fall down. I can see it coming,
Right.
So I think we all have that stuff,
And how did you work through it? Did you have a little
No, shit
pep
your
thing?
pants and go on,
Okay,
It's
yeah.
just that kind of, I played, I had to do this gig,
Right, right.
The same like Vince Gill, lots of guys that
Yeah.
have seen me play, and luckily some of them still talk to me a little bit, but it's just, you're a nervous wreck when you see somebody
Sure.
that you respect and admire,
Mm-hmm.
and you go, man, that guy's, and all you think of, all he's done and how great he is and all that stuff, and then here I got to play my little goofy shit, So I get that kind of feeling, but bottom line is, it's still, my dad told me when I was a kid, teenager, he said, doesn't matter who's sitting out front. I said, what do you mean? He said, you're the one with the job. They're out of work watching you play. And I was like,
I like that.
he's kind of right.
Yeah,
He
sorta.
doesn't need the work, and he's probably doing somebody a favor by he's bored coming to my gig,
Right.
But thinking of that is for my sake is that, that happens. Those kind of people show up once in a while at a gig and make you nervous, but so, play good and do your best and make sure your tone's right and you're in tune, and it's still the gig that you're going to do whether they're there or not. So
Sure.
Play your gig, So I didn't freak out or choke up. I think where I froze and, I might not have been as creative and inventive. Like,
Right.
Here's a new lick. Oops. Here's another new. Oops. I wouldn't be pulling those kind of things out.
Sure.
Not so much that guy's there,
Mm-hmm.
but if it's like a bar gig and a band's playing 5-hour night gig, that's when you try all the exciting new things. And if you get another solo, do something different and something new. But if it's a showcase for somebody and that singer is out front with their guitar singing, that's their gig. So shut up and do your part. That's the bottom line on that. No hot rodding, no nothing, unless they ask you to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, do what you're told or what you're paid to do. That's the way I see that. And so even though somebody may be there that you're just like, over, I still think of that as, no, this is a job and I have to do this job the right way and the good way and best as I can do. So I should harness I want a hot rod and show them my new lick. Don't do that,
Right.
As a recommendation,
Shut up and do your job.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's actually a good place for us to, you want to do a little bit of picking?
Sure.
Cool.